So, I'm a former professional motorsport racer with 2 national Ukrainian championships behind my back. And it seems as if now I get a perfect opportunity to show off and talk about what a journey racing is. How it starts with a 10-year-old getting on a motorcycle for the first time, and how then the kid undergoes a metamorphosis, turning into a beast on the iron horse, passionate and yet cool-headed. But this sounds more like a fairy tale to me. Quite obvious and far-fetched, work hard, playing hard kind of motive. Instead, what if we think about something more realistic, something prosaic, and something feasible? As a student, I immediately think about assignments and the grades I get for them. So for 4 years at the American University in Bulgaria, my hobby and my motorsport career that I had to quit to focus on the studies continued working in favor of my academic performance. And I'm not talking about a pass that some universities give out to professional students representing the institution. I'm talking about a fairly earned A, an A that one gets for a perfectly executed project. So how can a hobby not in any way related to one's field of study help a student achieve a desired 100% score? Well, let us first look at what constitutes a well-executed project. And when talking about creative assignments, let it be an essay, a research paper, or an applied project, students are usually given clear instructions. And such guides usually help us understand what matters most in the grading process. And these rubrics also stress on the importance of excellence in the areas of several important aspects. There are purely technical things such as structural guidelines, strict formatting, scary word count, and other things regarding general style of delivery. The requirements also touch upon the mandatory use of concepts from the class materials. And students are warned that innovation and creativity expressed throughout the paper affect the grade, and not in the minor way. But the last phrase that all professors mention at the end of their assignment explanation is this one. You're writing as an expert, and you must be as persuasive as an expert. And you, as experts do, take responsibility for every claim you put down in your work. And the moment I heard this phrase, back as a first-year student in one of the required English courses, that was the moment when it clicked. I solved the mystery. The perfect strategy was born, to use the biggest passion of my life to write great assignments. So my motorsport experience basically became an easy-to-write central theme for the short English papers on the topic of students' choice. But the thing is that then I could not stop, and it turned into an addiction. I kept on coming back to motorcycles in my podcasts, in my articles, in my PR campaigns, and even in my research papers. And at some point, I started doubting my creativity because of all these works constantly revolving around the same things: motorsport, racing, and motorcycle culture. Am I taking a cowardly shortcut? Am I limiting my creativity? Should my peers look at me as if I'm only pretending to be learning something new in the university? Or maybe my professors should start penalizing me for turning my political science and journalism degrees into a bachelor's in motorsports. Well, all these questions I asked myself before every other pitch and every other presentation, before one day a conversation took place. Quite simple and short, and yet enlightening. In 2020, a personal narrative was the final assignment for one of my journalism classes. And obviously, the juiciest stories of mine were connected to me twisting the throttle of my motorcycle back on track in Ukraine. And I came to a professor to ask whether I should even write about racing again after all of these previous works. And instead of a direct answer, I got a question, a classy phrase that we all get when pitching a topic to her. Victor, what's the real story there? And as I was telling the story, it occurred to me that the story was not about helmets, not about boots, not about gloves, not about the trajectories or type of fuel or tires. In a sense, it was not about motorcycles at all. Suddenly, I realized that it was about human relations, struggles, and challenges, all happening within the world of motorsport. And that day, I discovered a new dimension, a new stance that motorsport took in my life. It was no longer a life hack, neither it was limiting my creativity. It just became a whole world that people do not really know about. And an addiction, what seemed to be it, turned out to be a way of applying theoretical knowledge directly into practice. What seemed to be an addiction became the best possible stimulus for execution of perfect, professional, and detailed assignments. And what seemed to be an addiction resulted, and I officially stated this in my submission documents, what seemed to be an addiction resulted in me submitting a senior project in journalism, a work that I was defending my diploma with, a work that was about regional motorsport community in Blagoevgrad, and the project that is now referred to as one of the biggest projects in university's history. So my passion then basically led me in conquering the guidelines. Even the strictest and hardest ones, such as senior thesis. And that said, if we think about the mechanism that I just mentioned, about the rubrics I talked about, writing about a hobby actually triggers a reverse chain reaction, starting as a creativity booster and ending up with making the word count seem too small for you. Let me provide you with a closer look. First, you are the expert, because you most probably know about the subject you're writing about more than your professor actually knows. And you are already familiar with the most reliable, accurate, and up-to-date sources of information. And as a credibility booster, you got all your experience aggregated over the years. Second, I'm sorry. All right. After we've established that you're the expert, the innovation and creativity kick in. Because you know all the problems from the within. So who, if not you, should be the one coming up with solutions? You basically receive a canvas where all your dreams can come true. So why don't you just take what you love to the next level? Third, concepts become easy to use. Because all the class materials you're illustrating with something that you love most in the world and something that you know best. Every term now has its purpose in the world you live in. And I don't know a better way of explaining a complex term to myself than applying it to something completely clear. Fourth, your writing is persuasive. Because persuasion starts with you actually believing in whatever is said being true. And you don't just believe, you know it is, because you've been there and done that. Further, you want the audience to believe that it's true, but you already got hundreds of case studies that you either followed or been into. So just sort them out, narrow them down, and use the best ones in your argument. Fifth and final, you don't want to stop writing, and you don't want to stop researching. So what scary word count are we talking about? Ultimately, your passion for a hobby does not let you be irresponsible towards the assignment you got. And the assignment itself is no longer just a random project that you must complete by Friday. Instead, it becomes a chance for you to learn more about something you love using the dedicated study time. Moreover, it becomes a chance for you to spread the word and maybe even bring change. To illustrate the effect of motorsport in my education process, I actually did some simple calculations. Now, it's not entirely fair to say that all my assignments were about motorsports, but the biggest chunk, around 1/3 of all the creative assignments where I was able to pick a topic myself or moderate it somehow, was about motorsports. The other topics that you see also fell under the same mechanism, taking something I love and that I know best, digging into it and plugging in my work. Student life, I can easily be considered an expert on this, being the student myself. And social movements, well, another passion of mine. Surprise, surprise, guess what my next senior thesis now in political science is about. All of this proves that my experience is not a one-time exclusive instance or a coincidence. This approach can be actually applied to almost any field. Just think about it. Why doesn't a person who loves figure skating but studies economics does not invest in the research of Winter Olympic Games economics or national team economics? Why doesn't a painter who is a business major create a marketing plan for a drawing app startup or an art gallery? Why doesn't a football fan who is studying psychology discover the use of team sports in various therapies? And I can throw the examples like this all day long, but what's more important is realizing that your hobby is your advantage when used right. And if this idea still sounds unrelatable, if this idea still sounds limited, or it's not clear enough for you, let me provide you with one last anecdote. In 2018, I was already thinking to applying to this conference back as a first-year student when I just got to know about it. So I Googled how to write a TED Talk. And the first suggestion I got is write about something you care about. So what do I care about? By the time they open the application, motorcycles are the thing I want to give a speech about because I care. But it seems like an absurd idea. By the time of the deadline, motorcycles is that thing that I want to give a speech about because I care, but it still seems like an absurd idea. By the time they announce the speakers and I see other topics, I still want to talk about motorcycles because I care, but I already think to myself, I'm glad that I did not apply, looking at all the smart topics out there, and mine being motorcycles. But you know what? 4 years passed, and here I am, standing on this stage, giving a TEDx talk about motorcycles and how they affected my educational process. Because I care. So why don't we always choose a topic we truly care about, and instead of introducing ourselves next time as a former professional motorcycle racer, we would introduce ourselves in something like, hello everybody, I'm a producer of a documentary about motorsports. Thank you.